Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you again for another week. First let me find out how you're doing. I hope you had a great week in the past week. I sure did, and I'll tell you all about it as part of this episode. But I first have to apologize to my listeners because in the last episode, I said that I was going away and I would air a replay of some episode last Friday. And I was in South America and didn't get a chance to schedule one. And I had several of you reach out to me and say, hey, where is the episode from last week? So, first of all, let me apologize, but I also feel happy and privileged that people are paying so much attention that they're looking out for the episodes. And I want you to know that I appreciate you and encourage you to continue to like, comment, and subscribe. But when I come back, I'm going to tell you a little bit about something that really struck me as I was down there, and hopefully you can relate. It can be a great conversation, not too long, but something I think you'd enjoy listening to. So sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. So welcome back to 247 Real Talk podcast again. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. It's Wednesday, November 15th when I'm recording this, just about a little past 9:30 p.m. I should probably be in bed by now because I get up at a little before 4 a.m. each morning. It used to be 4 a.m. Now it's a little bit before because my train got earlier. But anyway, I'm digressing and let me get right into it. So the purpose of my visit was my father lives in South America. My mother, he moved there some years ago. I think I gave a few of my listeners a little bit of my history. But in the Caribbean and in South America, their judicial system is a little different. My father is a retired judge. In their system, there's the magistrates court, the high court, which is the Supreme Court, and then the appeal court is the highest court in the country. My father had an illustrious career from land court to magistrates court to Supreme Court to appeal court judge, and even was acting Chief Justice for more than one occasion. When I say for more than one occasion, senior judges would get to act as Chief Justice when the Chief Justice was away. So anyway, someone with integrity, someone who is the epitome of what the judiciary is supposed to be about. Independent, brilliant, understood the law, understands the law to this day because other legal experts or legal personnel call him for advice still and for direction. And it's poignant because I went down there to spend a week with him. My father in January this January, that means, December, January, will be 92 years old. I first of all have to say that I'm so blessed to have a father who's 92 years old, who's still with me, who can converse, who still drives, although I have a bit of a problem with that. And I don't know, and we're going to talk about that too real quick, but I don't know how to address that. And maybe after this episode, some of you will give me some advice as to a tactful approach towards that issue or that subject. But yeah, so he was someone who, when they reinstated the death penalty, where he was the first judge who had to sentence someone to death for a heinous crime, murder, double murder. I think it was, and they buried the body, something like that. But I said all that as, to preface, that the fact that he's old school, and he comes from a time that many of us need to look back on and learn from and remember. Most of the time when I would go down to see him, when my mom is deceased, I just said, let you know that because it's sort of part of the story, right? My mom died March 17th, 2014. So he's been by himself for 9 years now. They were together for 61 years. And as I've watched him age and I've watched him slowly get slower and slower, what has not dimmed is the brilliance of his mind. What is not dimmed is his wit. What is not dimmed is his ability to analyze, discern, and give advice that on my best day would not have been my first selection, but it was his. Spending this week, that last week with him, reminded me so much of how much of a decent human being and a man he is. Also made me realize that as I continue my efforts to be a decent human being, there is no way that I can measure up to who he is. And it reminded me of how much we need to take care of our elders, and we need to spend the time not ignoring them, not pushing them into nursing homes, but sitting and talking with them. Because what I got from this past trip was the wealth of knowledge and the wealth of experience he has this from living 92 years that I could never absorb enough of. And I pray each and every day that God keeps his mind sharp and gives me several more years with him so I can at least try. He came from a time where men treated women with respect. He came from a time where you opened the doors, you pulled a chair, you made sure that the lady walked on the inside of you if you were walking down the street, and you were to protect her out to the street. You spoke with a certain decency and a certain kindness and a certain tone of respect. You treated your wife and your lady and your daughters with so much respect that they grew up, especially daughters, would grow up knowing how they're supposed to be treated. Not the way we see young men treat young women today. I'm not saying that his generation was without fault, because we know even in his generation we had a lot of men his age and before, who still dealt with infidelity, adultery, and all these things. It wasn't until I was an adult that I found out that he has two half brothers. So my grandfather, my father's father, he stepped out, so to speak. People will be people. I think there's certain things about human beings that have not changed from generation to generation. We just want to make it seem like it did. But I still think that the level of decency, the level of respect for each other, the level of respect for the world was different. As I listened to him speak, and I listened to him analyze things and give his opinions, I can't help but sit there in awe of the brilliance of this man that still exists at 91 going on 92 years old. And all I want to do is take care of him and make sure that I can preserve who he is for as long as he's here and even after he's gone. It's a struggle for me because many people have their parents right there in front of them and ignore them, put them in nursing homes. I'm not saying that you put them, some people put parents in nursing homes because they can't do any better and the parents need care. My father lives alone. He does have someone who helps him, and I don't know how, in the Caribbean you call that person a maid, someone who cooks, but I'm going to call her a cook. And he has a cleaner, someone who cleans the house, and both these people have been with him. The cleaner's been with him for probably 20 years. The previous cook, this cook has been with him, I think, 9 years. The one before her had been with us 23 years. So these people have become part of your family. Because he was a judge, he had a driver, what we call a chauffeur. And when he retired, he kept the chauffeur and paid out of his own pocket because the government stopped paying once he retired. That chauffeur has been with him probably 26 years. So, it just struck me that when I look around our society, when I look around today at the way the youth today behave, forget about even my father's generation. When I look at kids today who treat my generation, the parents who are young, the way they do. My kids are young because I had kids late, but a lot of people have a lot older kids. And the way they treat their parents, it's hard to understand. But I also want to bring attention to the fact that we have a responsibility to take the knowledge from our parents and pass it on, to take that decency and integrity and make sure that it lives on. I know it's hard. When you look at society today and the way the kids are behaving, the way they're shooting and killing each other, the way that guys speak to women and women speak to men, the way that they interact, the way all the things that they do, I can understand why it's just simply feels like you're up against a wall, you're up against a battle that you can't win. But if we manage to keep this decency in our children the best we can, in that whole mess of madness that is today's generation, I bet you we end up producing some really good human beings as well. It is so important for us as a group, as society, and society itself to take care of our elders. We need to remember that as you and I sit here and talk, I have a vast audience of different age ranges, but some of you are already elders. Some, like me, will soon be in that category. And the youth that we're raising today will become us. What are we teaching them? As I said to you, I was in awe of what this man taught me. This man, my father, took care of his home. I'm going to tell you a story that he told me because it's very touching to me. So try to stick with me. My father, I'm from Barbados. My father was a magistrate in Barbados, and then he moved to South America. He got an offer as a judge. And when he first started, I think it was at the land court. There's a court that handles disputes over land. He wasn't making a lot of money. When he had moved back to South America, he had bought the house, the same house that I went to stay, to see him in, the same house he lives in today, albeit he remodeled it, right? It used to be a sort of one-level house on stilts, the way you would see in that part of the world, and now it's a two-level, full-story, concrete, cement house. But he told me a story once, because I remember as a kid growing up, my mother worked as well, and my mother would take us to the stores and buy our jeans and buy our school uniforms. And yes, back then you had school uniforms. And school uniform with the emblem and all these things that represented order. I know today, in today's world, there are a lot of people who are against school uniforms. And I get it. It's become a matter of economics, But my mother did those things. We want to go to fairs. They would have a fair, town fair or whatever. And she would take us, and she would pay for the sweets and the candy and the I forgot what you call that thing that I used to love. It's gonna come to me. It's like the cotton, the flour, the sweet thing. I don't know. I can't get the name right now, but it'll come to me. But what I didn't understand was that there were living roles. My mother was living the role of helping my father succeed, of standing beside him and behind him as he stepped up the ladder. He told me a story one time when I was going through a big struggle, and he said to me, "Son, your day is going to come." What do you mean? I mean, all I've ever seen is my father not really ever want for everything, having enough resources, monies to. Some people considered him, well off. I don't know if you would say, they're richer people than him. I don't know if he's rich, but his career certainly afforded him, certain abilities, financial abilities. But he told me, I remember when my grandmother died, my father's mother, and he told me a story one day. He said, and this is hard for us to comprehend in today's monetary world, but he said, when his mother died, and they went, they would get ready to dress her, or get the clothes out to dress her for her funeral. They had no shoes for some reason to put on her feet. Now I'm not sure if why that is. I think that I want to believe that they're buried in a certain type of shoe. They didn't wear just any kind of shoe, and maybe like slippers or something like that. But the bottom line is, he didn't have $50 to buy it. And back in those days, and my grandmother died quite a few years ago. I remember when I would say she died probably 49, 48, so close to 50 years ago. And he told me back then, $50 was a lot of money, not like today's standards. And he went to the bank, and because they knew him well, they gave him an overdraft so that he could put slippers or shoes on his mother's feet to bury her. Understand this. This is a land court judge, right? But he took on the role of getting our home, providing a roof over our heads, providing safety for us, and all the other things, all the bills my mom helped with us as kids. I didn't understand the dynamic. My parents, it's amazing that I've never seen my parents argue. My kids have seen myself and my wife argue. But somehow they lived in a time when they believed that any kind of disagreement that we should not be exposed to. I'm sure they had disagreements. I want to believe that, but it was like they made our world as pure and innocent as it could be, so that we as kids didn't have to live with other pressures, right? I mean, I see my kids sometimes when my wife and I have argued. Now we understand the dynamic now. We try to make sure we don't do it in front of them, or we keep it to a minimum, because we see how it affects them, how they look at you and they kind of say, "What's going on here?" And sometimes arguments, most arguments are not planned, obviously. So you kind of have to be in your P's and Q's and recognize when something is going on, and nip it in the bud. And I say arguments. Let me rephrase that. Not arguments, disagreements. My wife and I are very respectful to each other. We teach our children respect. We don't yell at each other. We don't call each other names. An argument is simply saying, "Well, I don't agree with that. Well, I do. Well, I don't. Well, I do." That sort of thing. We try to hold on to all those great values that our parents taught us, to make sure that our children have a clear understanding of what humankind is supposed to be like. You can't really vouch for your children, right? You don't know what they're going to do when they grow up. But it's our responsibility to give them the best foundation we can. This trip with my father reminded me of how much my mother and my father made sure that I had a solid foundation to stand on my own 2 feet. And there was a few times through my life, including adult life, when I faltered, when I made bad decisions. But because they had given me such a solid foundation, because my focus was as such that they were proud of who I was and what I was pursuing. There's a few times when I was about to fall, and I got to tell you, they caught me. And when I say they caught me with advice. They caught me even financially. I will admit that. When I was younger, pursuing things with lack of knowledge, and sometimes they had the answers, but they were far away in South America. I'm here, and sometimes we think we know it all, so we don't respect and acknowledge how much our parents know and knew, and the fact that they are a living resource that we can tap into to live a better life. So I made mistakes, and they talked to me about it, and they guided me so I didn't make the same mistake twice. And then when I got to my end, and I was like, it's over. I'm out. I made a bad investment, bad whatever. They caught me. But they didn't catch me with an attitude of, "Oh, here goes this guy again. Here goes this my son again. Here goes this boy again." No. They were proud of my pursuits. I ended up, when I finished my academic career, with a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. And to this day, my father is very proud of that. Not because of what the degrees are, but because of the journey it took to get there and who he created me to be. Each and every week, I take the time to record an episode. I take the time to push a lot of things on social media, trying to counteract all the negativity and all the vile nonsense, all the drama and all the distractions, with something that's powerful and impactful, something that will make a difference in our lives. My ability to do that came from my father and mother, the people who taught me when the world changed, I would recognize it and yet be equipped enough by the foundation that they provided to navigate this world. And it's evident in the person I chose as my wife and mother of my children, because our values are similar. And she too is a strength and a force behind me. I mentioned to you a couple episodes ago that she has been pushing, and she went through it, and we're about to pull our kids out of public school into the homeschooling program, and I'm not going to get into that in this conversation because I'm going to try to get her on camera. She doesn't like to get in front of the camera, but I'm going to try to record an episode, and maybe once a month, as I told you, chronicling to you our journey as we are experiencing for the first time, and also as a tool to help other parents, other people of color especially. And don't take that as discrimination, because I have an audience of every race, creed, and color. They've reached out to me. I understand this, but we also have to be realistic that many, going back to the teachings of my father and what I was privileged to get to learn, many people have not had that privilege. Many people have parents who died young. Many people have parents who were so impoverished and didn't get an education, and their life story is different. And the impact of that pressure made the example from their parents different. But what we want to do with chronicling and discussing the homeschooling journey is to empower other people, whatever race, creed, or color, to take a chance if your circumstances allow, right? Because my wife her job is 100% remote, or you need to have someone there. Now you understand what homeschooling is. You're not teaching the kids. They're on the computer. There's a whole curriculum, and there's a whole thing we're gonna get into, and I don't want to because I don't have the knowledge and she does, and I would implore you to tune into those episodes when you see them, and listen to what she has to say. But the point is that we have, because the teachings, the decency, the honor, the morals, the integrity that people like my father has barely trickled down to today's society. Not poured, not dripped, barely trickled. We have a situation where we have children in public schools that are failing. The school system is failing and the students are failing. And there's a clash between what this generation has become and what the school environment should be. I have to be honest with you. I also shared with you an episode or two about my son and his challenges with autism. But I'm very hopeful for who you become because of homeschooling. I'm also relieved because I have to tell you, in being honest with you as my audience, that I was scared about what would happen as he's going to be 10 years old soon. I was scared of what was going to happen when he started really experiencing bullyism. He is high on the autistic spectrum, but behaves normally. At least when you first engage with him, you have to be with him for a while to understand and see his level of autism. But because he lacks certain social skills, he's innocent. And I was petrified that when someone would say something to him that in their mind would lead to violence, his response would be such that would get him hurt. Not because of anything else, but he simply doesn't understand. Because he doesn't see the world the way we do. And his innocence would be a detriment to him. I am glad that we're pulling them out of public school because, like I said, those things I witnessed last week sitting and talking with my father, those values, that integrity, that thinking that automatically goes in line with integrity, where their first thought is not something bad, something horrible, something mean. It's something that has substance of decency and a resemblance of what we were designed to be as human beings, or at least what I believe. I have to say at the same time, what's incredible about witnessing your parents age and get to that age, God bless him, his short-term memories beginning to fade. Actually, it's happening quite often. His long-term memory is solid as a rock. He'll tell you something that happened in 1932, in 1940. But if he tells you about a book he read today, in the same conversation within 15 minutes, he might ask you 5 times, did I tell you about that book I read today? it was about blah blah blah. And then you go on something. Did I tell you about that book we read today? And I realized it. And in being vulnerable in front of you, my audience, I have to tell you, I have struggled with it. I struggle with it because this man, who represents again a man who I could only be a shadow of, is showing chips in his armor. And although it is obvious, and although it is the simple progression of age, he is my hero. He is impenetrable. He's unbreakable to me. And to see the unbreakable shake, to see the unbreakable walk slowly, to see the unbreakable hold a glass sometimes in his hand shake, to see the unbreakable and witness the unbreakable forget something, and at the same time see the unbreakable live alone, drive a car, and still educate me at this stage of life about things I'd never heard, never experienced, still teach me from his simple life experience, the vastness of his life experience. Is not only amazing, it's to me it's miraculous. I've been truly, truly blessed. My mother died 86 years old. And I'm so blessed and thankful that my father continues to live on. I know the day will come when that legacy will end. I sometimes think about it and I have to push it out of my mind because it's traumatic even thinking about it. But one thing is sure, that with every breath of my being, I need to help or do whatever I can to make sure that not only we learn and I learn and my kids learn from all the knowledge that he has to impart, but that I treat him with dignity and respect. That I go above and beyond to make sure that his life and the rest of it is comfortable and happy. And to do whatever I can to make sure that he's living in a time, or whatever's left of it, that is worthy of who he has been to this world, to me, and to my family. The message here in this episode is learn from those who came before us, for the wisdom and knowledge they have can change this world and the direction and destructive manner that we're in and heading deeper into. The message from this story is, if you still have that parent, love them, treat them with respect, take care of our elders, make a sacrifice. It might be hard, but don't feel that it's okay to push them off into a nursing home because you cannot be bothered. Because whether you like it or not, if you are blessed enough and privileged enough to live to their age, one day all of us, if we are here, will be them. And we may not, we will be them, but we'll be a shadow of them. We won't be smart enough in world knowledge, in life knowledge, in integrity, in honesty, and understanding of humanity. And we surely don't want to experience someone shoving us in a corner, pushing us in a nursing home, can't be bothered, because somehow they decide that with all the vast knowledge and wealth of knowledge and eagerness of attitude that we want to still share with the world, that we're now treated like a relic, that your relevance, not that it doesn't exist, but we treat it like it doesn't matter. Take a look around you at this world. Take a look at what's going on outside your window. Turn the news station on, TV or radio. Listen to what's happening in the world. And then if you have that parent who's still here, and I have a friend of mine whose father just died, and he died 3 months short of his 100th birthday. And when I reached out to him to tell him, give him my condolences, he said, "Your father's still alive. Do what I did. Learn as much as you can from him. For once they close their eyes, what is lost is more valuable than anything we have or can ever gain." As society, as people, as human beings, we're here to take care of each other. But when our elderly still survive and are still in our presence, let's make sure we honor them with the decency, care, love, and integrity that they deserve. For no matter what we do in this life, in terms of their depth of knowledge, and I know there are scenarios where people will say, I'll never want to be like my father. I'm happy I can't say that. I would say, I hope before I leave this place, I can be half the man he is. I do this because of him. I reach out to you because of what my parents taught me was valuable in this world. I implore you every time I record an episode to join me in making a difference. We might not be able to stop the destruction, but maybe we can slow it down enough that our children and our children's children still have a chance of a decent life, not just financially, but as a human being. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share this personal story. Next episode, I'll be back with a discussion probably about, I'm thinking right now about homelessness. But until then, listen to this episode as many times as you want. Reflect on your parents, whether they're alive or dead, have passed on. Remember them, remember who they were or are. Put aside some of the stuff that may not have been perfect. But think about those times when they gave you a word of advice or showed by example something that if you implemented in this world today, oh, this world would be such a different place. Again, I thank you so very much. It is always my honor and privilege to chat with you. Please, as I continue this journey, I need you with me. I need many more with me, walking beside me, making this difference. I ask you to like, comment, subscribe, and share. To have conversations with others about the conversations we have and invite them to join, to subscribe, and to share to their folks. I'm building this one person at a time, but I can't do it alone, and I cannot do it without you. I look forward to seeing our audience and our group grow. And I look forward to the days when we can be impactful in a much bigger way. And still, in a world that's fighting against us, make a difference that results in righteous movement. Do enjoy your week ahead. Be safe, be careful, take care of yourselves, and please take care of each other.